Hello, hello, hello. DMG Jim here. We are working through our RTFM, our audiobook mode of the 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide. We are finishing with Chapter 5, which has been building your campaigns and all of that. And we're actually in the subsection on the Greyhawk, the old school 1E setting that has been resurfaced as our sample campaign setting for our Dungeon Master's Guide. So because we're going into the Gazetteer, we're looking at locations and regions. I'm going to go ahead and keep a map up on the right while we go through the text on the left. I know we're in audiobook mode. You're listening along. The best you can do is hear what I'm reading. But if you want to take a look at the screen, it might help you out a little bit as we're going through. Definitely kind of like what I talked about when we were looking at Beyond the City Walls. When you're looking at regional information, it does help to have a map available while you're looking at the locations, while you're reviewing the information about the specific locations. So you can try to draw a picture in your own mind. You can check relativity. What are the chances of my players even going near this when there's 5 other things between him and there? So having a map up is helpful. Unfortunately, for an audiobook, we'll do the best we can with it. So, let's get into it, man. The Greyhawk Gazetteer. The poster map in this book shows the entire region of the Flanius with the free city of Greyhawk near the center. As characters venture beyond the confines of the city and its surrounding lands, you can use the map and the information on these pages to inspire your own adventures and world details. The big picture. To understand the Greyhawk of today, the year 576 in the common year, it's helpful to picture the Flanius about 200 years ago. At that time, the great kingdom of Aarti stretched from the vast swamp to the Rakers, and from the Solnor Ocean to the Yantel and Lortmill Mountains. Between the Lortmill Mountains and the Crystal Mists were the kingdom of Keolen, mimicking the great kingdom in its imperialistic approach. To the west of the mountains, the Backlanish nations, survivors of the invoked devastation, stood as much as they do now. And to the north, the nomadic people, the Chakik, the Wigware, and the rovers of the hunting lands, the North Kingdoms were, as now, independent of the politics from the south. The contraction of the two southern realms over the last 2 centuries is the primary force that has shaped the modern Flanius. First, the provinces of Paranland, Valuna, and Furiondi, far away from the Overking's throne in Roxas, declared their independence from the Great Kingdom. When Nairon joined him in 356 CY, the stage was set for the slow disintegration of the Great Kingdom and the ongoing rebellion that dominates the eastern part of the Flanius to this day. The beginning of Aarti's decline marked the high water mark of Keolen's expansionist policies as it held sway from the Pomarge to the borders of Ket. Aided by Selene, rebels in the Ulek region strove to curb the kingdom's warlike ways, and the accession of King Tavish IV in 453 CY marked a dramatic shift of royal policy. The Yeomanry and the Ulek states were granted autonomy. The Grand March and Sterich became semi-independent while remaining loyal to the crown. And the diverse peoples of this region coexist in relative peace once again. With this big picture in mind, you can think of the Flanius beyond the free city of Greyhawk as 5 major regions, each with its own store of adventure possibilities waiting to be explored. So, the central Flanius, diverse people clash against Ayas and the forces of the elemental evil here in the central area. The northern Flanius, in vast wilderness expanses populated by indigenous folks, one's mettle is tested by the environment and roving dragons. Eastern Flanius, the remnants of the Great Kingdom struggle to determine the fate of the land in the Overking's wicked clutches. And the Old Keolen region. The former provinces of Keolen contend against evil monsters from the western mountains, including dragons and giants. And lastly, the Western Flanius. The Backlanish people and nations navigate complex political relationships. So the map is divided into the 5 sections as described there. Sidebar. Living history. Greyhawk has a long history of ancient empires and more recent wars, but the only relevant details of this history are those that feature in your adventure. Highlight significant in-world details by revealing them in the course of your adventures. Use the following techniques to share lore with your players. Echoes of the past. Features like a crater in the side of a mountain, a defaced statue in the town square, or a holiday celebrating a local hero provide concrete touchstones to past events. The characters might learn that a ruin they're exploring was destroyed in a catastrophic battle or a natural disaster. Historical records. Written historical details might appear anywhere in an adventure. Glyphs on an ancient dungeon walls, books in a library, files in a royal vault, or tapestries depicting key events. Use such set dressing to share important details, summarize what lengthy works say, and focus on the most plot-worthy parts. Scholarly expertise. Characters who have proficiency in the arcana, history, or religion skill check can be fonts of useful information. When it would be helpful for a group to know something about the setting, ask such a character to make an intelligence check using the relevant skill, then share plot-relevant details if their role warrants it. Magical footnotes. Spells such as contact other planes, legend lore, and speak with dead allow characters to learn information while leaving you in control of the particulars. Primary sources. Personify the past through a tragic ghost, an otherworldly guardian, an artificial intelligence, an ancient sage, or another long-lived individual. Such NPCs give you a way to share relevant information and respond to questions from the party. If the characters miss an important detail, this NPC can reinforce details in a way books and recollected facts can't. Any one of these methods is useful for revealing a few details. You can combine them to share nuanced histories and help the players feel like they're digging into a rich and realistic history. The next section is the Central Flanius. The rich soil and pleasant climate of the region between the Near Div and the Yantl Mountains, combined with healthy trade relationships between these realms and their neighbors to the east, south, and west, make this a strong and prosperous region. So what we're getting here is going to be a table. Left column is giving us specific locations. Middle column is giving us who the ruler is. And the right column is giving us a very brief description of the location in question. Very brief. So the first one they list, and they're all by alphabetical order, is Selene. The ruler is Queen Yolande. She's an elf. The description is an elven monarchy with large gnome and halfling populations. The Free City of Divers is next. Magister Thymacia Gortaz in Asimir, an important port and trading center with a powerful navy. The Kingdom of Furiondi, King Belvor IV. Former province of the Great Kingdom, among the first to claim its independence. The next one is the High Folk, and this is kind of up here. We're all still floating in here. The Free City of the High Folk. Mayor Talasir appears as an elf. Fortified city with large population of elves. The mayor is a disguised adult silver dragon. The Horn Society is next. 9 hierarchs, mostly human and hobgoblins. It's a theocracy ruled by devil worshippers allied with Ayahs, supported by mercenaries enforcing their tyrannical rule. Followed by Ayahs. Ruled by Ayahs, a Cambion demigod. The monster-infested domain of the demonic dictator steeped in wickedness. Near Div, the lake of unknown depths, no ruler here, home to barge dwellers. The next one in the central is Perrinland. Vorzitter Urendesh Schwarzen, human, fiercely independent confederation of cannons, small city-states up here around Lake Quag. The Pamarge, a lawless peninsula, home to bandits and marauders. Shieldlands, various allied nobles, independent alliance of nobles protected by the Knights of the Holy Shielding, led by Knight Commander Alesh Karth, a dragonborn, and fortified by Furionsti and Ernst. The Archclericy of Valuna, Canon Hazen is the leader. Theocracy ruled by priests of Rao, a divine beacon of justice and hope. Verbobank, the free city and viscounty thereof. Viscountess Wulfric Ryjan, human. Vassal state of Valuna, the site of the Temple of Elemental Evil. That's his whole claim to fame. And last is the Wild Coast. Various burgomasters, lord mayors, and others. Free territory with self-governing settlements, havens for outcasts and dissidents. So this is the most stable the most stable region of the Flanius, the central section of it, and there's still a lot of crap going on. A little bit of history coming next. The Battle of Emerald Meadows. 7 years ago, knights and soldiers from Furiondi, the Archclericy of Valuna, the Viscounty of Verbobank, and the Elven Kingdom of Selene formed an alliance to repel an evil horde that had gathered in the grassy fields south of the Velvedriver River. This clash of armies, arguably the greatest seen in eastern Ulrich, was called the Battle of Emmerdry Meadows. The forces of evil were smashed, and the remnants were driven back into the dungeons under their stronghold, the Temple of Elemental Evil. The forces of good, under the commands of Prince Thrommel IV of Furiandi, besieged the temple, which fell in a fortnight. Only a few of the temple's wicked leaders escaped, and it is suspected that these individuals were responsible for the subsequent kidnapping of the prince. Prince Thrommel was engaged to marry Lady Jolene, a priest from a prominent noble family of Valuna. Their marriage would have united Furiandi and Valuna as a single entity, with the canon of Valuna ruling its matters spiritual, and the kingdom of Furiandi ruling in matters temporal. This combined state, with its powerful elf allies in Selene, could wage a steady war against the evil plaguing Eastern Ulrich. The prince's disappearance has stalled these plans. Next is the rise of Ayaz. Ayaz is the offspring of the demon lord Grazit and a human archmage named Igwilv. Tasha, for those of you that are in 5th edition lore. For ages, he ruled the lands from the Howling Hills to Lake Whitesail, naming his domain after himself. These lands are so despoiled and dangerous that the otherwise fierce nomads of the hunting lands and the Wygwer pass through the cold marshes rather than enter the merest edge of Ayaz's realm. Ayaz's evil reign was interrupted by a 65-year imprisonment in the dungeon under Castle Greyhawk. During his absence, the kingdom of Furiandi and its allies prospered, while the land of Ayaz was overrun with evil bandits and monsters. Ayaz's absence turned him into a legend and attracted a host of new followers whose misplaced faith invested him with the power of a demigod. Upon winning his freedom, Ayaz had no trouble reclaiming his homeland. He forged tenuous alliances with the leaders of the bandit kingdoms and the Horn Society, whom he controls through terror. With their aid, he aims to destroy his neighbors and lay waste on the free city of Greyhawk. Since the resurgence of Ayaz, the northern quarter of the Vespi Forest and the eastern part of the Howling Hills have become filled with marauders and monsters. While the Wegweir battle Ayaz's forces in the Howling Hills, scouts and troops from Furiandi joined forces with High Folk's defenders to drive out the Vespi Forest's evil inhabitants. Big old war going on here. Central Flanius cultures. The culture of the Central Flanius is a result of long imposition of the Great Kingdom's rule over a variety of peoples living in close proximity. These peoples, by and large, share the Great Kingdom's practical, hardworking values, and they rely on family and local community rather than the might of nations and armies. They have a strong egalitarian streak, unlike the Great Kingdom's strict social hierarchy, and beyond the domains of Ayaz and the Horn Society, they have little tolerance for would-be tyrants or aloof nobility. Amid a large number of free cities and confederations, the monarchies of Furiandi and Selene are far more democratic in practice than those in other regions. Typical dress in the Central Flanius include a tunic of varying length, sometimes worn with close-fitting trousers. A cape or cloak, usually featuring patterns of ovals or diamonds, completes the ensemble. The cuisine of the Central Flanius uses rice and potatoes alongside cheese and meat that is typically boiled or roasted. Ugh. Boiled potatoes, gross. Central Flanius adventures. The dual threats of Ayaz and the elemental evil present abundant opportunities for adventures in the Central Flanius. See the Greyhawk conflicts earlier in this chapter. This region is particularly appropriate for campaigns flavored with epic fantasy, supernatural horror, or war. See the flavors of fantasy section earlier in this chapter. This region is also home to many of the most famous dungeons and ruins of Greyhawk, including those described in the sections that follow. Real quick, these are referring to first edition, mostly first edition and second edition modules, adventures that were published for Greyhawk. There weren't a ton of them published, believe it or not. But let's get into them. The first one is Ghost Tower of Inverness. Ages ago, an archmage raised the mighty fortress of Inverness from the very rock of the Aber Alls. In the great inner tower of the keep, he hid his most prized possession, the Soul Gem. Legend says this great white diamond fell from the sky and glowed with the brilliance of the sun, and its magic could drag mortal souls screaming from their bodies and trap them. The fortress was ruined long ago, but on foggy nights, the great central tower still appears. Lost Caverns of Soth Canth. The Archmage Igwilv is said to have acquired much of her powers from the hidden magic she discovered within the Lost Caverns of Soth Canth. Pronounced Sawcan. Pronounce it how I'm going to pronounce it. Bite me. In these caverns, she conducted experiments and rituals to increase her powers. One of these rituals led to her downfall, though, when she accidentally freed the demon lord Grazit from the prison where she had bound him. Though Grazit fled to the abyss, Igwilv was weakened and forced to abandon the caverns, but a secret cache of her treasures is said to still remain. The Lost Caverns of Sothcanth are detailed in the 5e book Quest from the Infinite Staircase. Mar Castle. Mar Castle is a forlorn and forbidding place surrounded by boggy ground and scraggly trees. Rumors suggest that a tome holding the eldritch lore of unimaginable evil is held within, guarded by a powerful demon. This module is represented as Mar Castle is contained in the module Mordenkainen's Fantastic Adventure. It was a first edition Greyhawk module. And last but certainly not least, the Temple of Elemental Evil. The Temple of Elemental Evil, built long ago, spawned hordes of bloodthirsty monsters that ravaged the lands between Selene and Valuna. As far as anyone in the area knows, the temple is currently abandoned and has not posed a threat since the Battle of Emeraldy Meadows in 569, but the forces of good in the region kept vigilant against any sign that the temple and its cults might arise once more. This is modules T1 through 4, Temple of Elemental Evil. It was redone as the Return to the Temple of Elemental Evil, and it was redone again in the 5th edition as Princes of the Apocalypse. So much source material out there for you. All you gotta do is adapt what's there to what you need. Sorry. Eastern Flanius. Once a powerful force for order and good, the great kingdom of Aardi has declined over the last century to a state of utter decadence. The reigning over-king, Ivid V, patriarch of the house of Nalex, is rumored to have fiendish advisors as well as a noble court infested with evil. Ruling from the Malachite throne in Roxas, Ivid commands an unmatched army currently embroiled in 2 wars at once. One against the kingdom of Nyrond and the prelacy of Almor, and the other against the Iron League, consisting of Ed, Irongate, the Lordship of the Isles, Onwall, and Sundi. To pay for these costly wars, the Overking has imposed heavy taxes on his subjects, further diminishing his popularity. Aardiak, Alyssa, Medegia, and Relastra are provinces and fiefs of the Great Kingdom. The Sea Baronies are vassal states that provide most of the kingdom's navy. Let's get into the table here. As our prior one, it is in alphabetical order. It's going to give us a location, then it's going to give us who the ruler is, and it's going to give us a very brief description of each of the locations. Aardiak, Herzog Vars Grenel, who is a human. The northern province of the Great Kingdom ruled by a cousin of the Overking. Its court is rife with debauchery and intrigue. And that's kind of over here on that section of the map. Alyssa, Herzogen Seprena Kalin, a human. South province of the Great Kingdom, ruled by a cousin of the Overking, currently embroiled in a war with the Iron League of Onwall. The prelacy of Almor. Prelate Xanthar Klimstin, a theocracy ruled by a priest of Palor who has declared independence with the Great Kingdom descended into evil. So Almor is right in between Nyrond and the Great Kingdom. The Bone March, up here. No ruler. Fallen territories of the Great Kingdom now held by armies from Almor and Nyrond. The Celadon Forest, this big green thing near Nyrond. Ancient forest protected by druidic circles and fae with no ruler. The Flinty Hills in the Gambosh Forest over here in the northern part of the Eastern Flanius. Home to several independent communities with no great love for Nyrond or the Pale. The Great Kingdom itself, over King Ivid V, Ivid the Undying. Unspeakably evil monarchy. And the rest is up to you. Idi, down here by Onwall. Count Vasiliek Donston, a human, an independent fiefdom and also a member of the Iron League. The free city of Irongate, located down here near Ironwall as well. Mayor Unthera Selvich, who appears as a dwarf. A thriving metropolis, a member of the Iron League. The mayor is disguised adult bronze dragon. The Lordship of the Isles, kind of down here. Prince Ronthal III. Independent principality, member of the Iron League. Next up is Medegia, the Sea of Medegia, Holy Censor Starvik Jurel. Down here on the coast, a theocratic fiefdom ruled by a priest whose power is rumored to come from pacts with archdevils. The Kingdom of Nyrond, King Dunstan I. It's the center of resistance to the Great Kingdom. Onwall. The Raven of Onwall, Zil Greyshadow, who is a dwarf, and it's an independent state and a member of the Iron League. The Theocracy of the Pale, Supreme Prelate Ogon Tillet. It's a theocracy up here ruled by Priest of Foltus. The City of Relastra, central part here on the far coast. Constable Mayor Drax, who is an orc. An independent fief plotting in secret against the Great Kingdom, hoping to ally with Medegia or the Sea Baronies. Followed by the Sea Baronies, 4 sea barons, including the High Admiral Kalash Asperity. Independent island fiefdom that serves as the Great Kingdom's navy. The Hidden Empire of Shar. Kind of, where the hell is that? That's actually off to the right there from, oh no, down here. Ooh, that's right. It used to be the Tilvanat. The Hidden Empire of the Shar, Father of Obedience, Corinth Zahn, isolated order of Suluise militants whose spies operate across Flanius. The rest of us remember this as the Scarlet Brotherhood, and the Tilvanat Peninsula has been renamed the Shar. Don't stress it. The Spindrift Isles, off to the far side over here. The Council of 5 on the northern islands, and the Council of 7 on the southern island. Independent islands to keep watchful eyes on aggressive island neighbors. Followed by Sundee. Stuart Valenta, an elf. It's an independent fiefdom and a member of the Iron League. Next up is the Duchy of 10. Duchess Elia Raynar III, independent fiefdom allied with Nyron for defense against Ayas. The County of Ernst, Countess Belisica Galore, and it's an independent fiefdom. The Duchy of Ernst is ran by Duke Jalkin Lorinar, and it's also an independent fiefdom. The Vast Swamp, it's a morass separating the Tilvanat Peninsula and Shar from the rest of the east. So, details about the locations. Shar. Fanatical Suluise militarists called the Scarlet Order founded the Hidden Empire of Shar, which is closed to the outsiders. The Order controls the peninsula west of the Tilva Strait and as far north as the Vast Swamp. See factions earlier in this chapter to talk about Scarlet Order. Eastern Flanius cultures. The culture of the Eastern Flanius is largely that of the ancient Aerdi tribe of humans that conquered the region and established the Great Kingdom almost 800 years ago. The Aerdi valued common sense, hard work, and knowing one's place in a strict social order. Having claimed their positions of power through conquest, they put great emphasis on military power and martial skill. These values persist throughout the region, reinforced in the Great Kingdom by strict laws and even stricter moral codes. These same values persist in many of the lands resisting the Overking's reign. Nyrond and Almor in particular share the stratified social structure of this Great Kingdom, with their kings and prelates remaining distant from the common people they rule. The independent states of the Iron League are more egalitarian, sharing the traits with the people of the Central Flanius. Typical clothing in the Eastern Flanius is a tunic of varying length, often worn with trousers with a cape or cloak. The fabrics of the East are often patterned with checks or plaids, with different patterns often relating to the wearer's lineage. Eastern cuisine pairs rice and potatoes with a variety of meats, especially seafood. A lot of potato and rice farming going on in Greyhawk, man. Eastern Flanius and its neighbors. The Duchy and County of Ernst bridged the regions of the Central and Eastern Flanius. Once a part of the Great Kingdom's province of Nyrond, they declared their independence from the Great Kingdom and the New Kingdom of Nyrond at the same time, achieving their separation from Nyrond with minimal bloodshed. While the people of Ernst distrust the King of Nyrond, they don't hate him like they do the Overking. The proximity of the Near Div, the Cairn Hills, and the Shieldlands mean that Ernst's lands can't ignore the rising threat of Ayas or the politics of the free city of Greyhawk. At the same time, Nyrond stands as a buffer between Ernst and the Great Kingdom, but the Overking's threat still looms. The Duke and Countess of Ernst believe that a united Ernst will stand more strongly against the pressures from east and west, which they hope to achieve through the marriage of Countess Belisica to Byron Lorinar, the eldest son of Duke Jalkin Lorinar. Political marriages, it's a thing in a feudal society. Eastern Flanius Adventures. The story of the Eastern Flanius is a tale of scrappy rebels. Nyrond, Almor, and the Iron League defying the overwhelming power of a corrupt and decadent empire. This story lends itself to a campaign exploring themes of supernatural horror in the fiend-haunted courts of the Overking, or swashbuckling in the cities across the region as well as the eastern seas, and the war. See the flavors of fantasy section earlier in this chapter, the types of campaigns and adventures, the themes that we're looking at, right? Havens of unrest. Those who despise and challenge the great kingdom's oppression, outlaws both good and bad, find refuge in borderlands just beyond the reach of the Overking's soldiers. These include the woods and swamps near Relastra, the eastern reaches of the Grandwood Forest and the Lone Heath, and the Hestmark Highlands east of Sunday. The outlaws in the Grandwood include a significant number of elves and halflings as well as humans, while those in the Hestmark Highlands include dwarves and gnomes. The Tomb of Horrors. Deep within the vast swamp is a sinister Tomb of Horrors, a labyrinthine crypt filled with terrible traps, strange and ferocious monsters, and rich and magical treasures. Somewhere within rests the demi-lich Acerasac. They changed his fucking spelling. Acerarak, who ruled much of the region long ago. The demi-lich is said to take perverse pleasure in devouring adventurers' souls. The Tomb of Horrors is detailed in the Yawning Tales from the Yawning Portal. It was also repeated in fucking Tomb of Annihilation for Forgotten Realms. The Trollfens. The chilly mists of the Trollfens, located against the shoulders of the Griff Mountains and the Rakers at the head of the Yole River, cloak a place of unnameable horrors. As the name implies, the fens are infested with particularly large and vicious trolls. The Pale carefully hedges the place with watchtowers and keeps, and strong patrols ride the verges of the southern end of the troll fens to watch for unwelcome visits from the monsters dwelling within. And that's what you're getting for adventure sites. A little bit of commentary here. The Eastern Flannius was never heavily published. There was a lot of concepts, but they didn't do a lot of modules. Barring the Spindrift Isles, the Lendor Isles series that was published by Lakofka, there was not a lot of published content for this part of the region. So next we're going to go to the Northern Flannius. As usual, we are going through, we're getting there, man. We've got a couple more sections to go. Long read here. Northern Flannius. The northern regions of the Flannius include 3 distinct areas populated by different people. The Backlanish horse riders of the Chakik and the Waigwer, the Suluese people of the North Kingdoms, and the Flan nomads of the Hunting Lands. As usual, this is described in a table. The left column gives us a location, the middle column gives us who the ruler is, and the right column is a entirely too brief description of the region. So the first one is Arn, the Archbarony of, the Archbaron of Arn, with no unknown identity, a remote and little-known region located near a ruined castle with monster-filled dungeons. The Bandit Kingdoms, 4 to 6 bandit lords, feuding kingdoms ruled by greedy bandit lords with private armies. The Barren Wastes, no ruler here, harsh despoiled land where dragons roam and sometimes go to die. The Chakiak, Lord Oskuf Krusef, human, the land of the tiger nomads, horse riders with scattered trading outposts. The Hunting Lands, Overlord Protector Yareen Sakar, who is a tiefling, home to Flan nomads known to their neighbors as the Rovers of the Barrens. And that's kind of up here in the northern area near the Barren Wastes. The northern kingdom of the Kruski. Queen Tharla of the Kruski, who is a human. Fierce seafaring berserkers of the northern kingdoms. The northern kingdom of the Frusti. King Hungrid of the Frusti. Human. Weakest of the 3 northern kingdoms, having suffered great losses battling against the Bone March. The North Kingdom of the Schnai, Queen Ingrid of the Schnai, human, strongest and most populated of the North Kingdoms. The Barony of Ratik, Baron Lexnal Harkoff, formerly province of the Great Kingdom, trying to ally with the North Kingdoms. The Hold of the Stonefist, King Severed Redbeard of the Hold, a human, monarchy founded by a bandit leader who attracted malcontents from many nations. Wegwire, Wolf Mother Barga Yefkos, the land of the wolf nomads, horse riders engaged in a war against Ayas. That's our regions, that's our locations of the north. The details, the Backlanish nomads. The Chakik and Wigware, called the Tiger Nomads and Wolf Nomads, respectively, by their neighbors, are horse riders of Backlanish descent who dwell on the steppes north of the Yatul Mountains and Lake Quarg. The climate in the steppes and pine forest ranges from cool to frigid. Both people maintain scattered trading outposts that welcome visitors from neighboring and distant lands. The steppe nomads have a rich storytelling tradition that reinforces a strong sense of clan identity and family line within the clan. Their tales include stories not only of heroes within their clans, but also of heroic horses, and the nomads trace equine lineage as carefully as their own. These nomads maintain the traditions of their people, many of which can be traced back to the ancient Bangladesh Empire. The Bangladesh nomads favor bright pastel colors in gowns and robes, while when traveling or at war, though, they prefer more rugged gear of leather and hide. The North Kingdoms, 3 kingdoms of related people, occupy the Throlnarian Peninsula in the northeastern of the Flanius, a beautiful subarctic landscape of high mountains, coniferous forests, and deep fjords. Scandinavia. The kingdoms are named for the 3 distinct tribal lines that inhabit them. The Kruski, whose main name means ice, the Frutsi means frost, and the Schnai meaning snow. The Schnai are strong and numerous. When Queen Ingrid of the Schnai has a mind to raid the Isles of the Sea Baronies or the coasts of the Erdiak and the Great Kingdom, she calls upon the king of the Frutsi and the queen of the Kruski to join her army. King Hungrid of the Frutski has no choice but to honor his oath to the Schnai, while Queen Tharla of the Kruski rarely turns down a chance to attack her enemies. At other times, the Kruski raid the Frutski, the Schnai, or the hold of the Stonefast. As their distinct kingdoms suggest, the people of the northern kingdoms value their connections to their clan lineage. They preserve a love of learning from their distant ancestors, the Sul Imperium, and they value knowledge of the natural world as highly as they do the skills of hunting, sailing, and warfare. Their clothing includes shirts and pants made of wool, augmented with furs, capes, mittens, and warm boots. They often wear large pins, brooches, or emblems in their cloaks as a sign of wealth or accomplishment. The next summary is the hunting lands. The people of the hunting lands, called the Rovers of the Barrens by their neighbors, have a history of raiding the outskirts of Furiondi, the Bandit Kingdoms, Ten, and Wygwer, which has not won them many allies. The nomads' legendary dominance of the north has faded as the forces of Ayaz and the Horn Society wage steady war against them, while raiders from the hold of the Stonefist prey on the hunting lands farther east. Many of the Rovers' mightiest warriors, the War Dogs, have perished in battles against all these relentless foes. The peoples of the hunting lands value a close connection to the natural world. They view nature as an entity to be respected, not controlled, and their myths and legends teach the value of accepting nature's bounty as a gift that evokes gratitude. They wear clothes made entirely of animal skins, including belts, capes, robes, and slippers, and decorate their skin with paints and tattoos. The northern Flanius and its neighbors. Okay, notice we are getting to the north. There were not any adventure ideas that were given for this, because there was less written for the north than there was. A couple comments on that at the end of the section here. So we're almost done. We're almost done, man. Not really. 1, 2, 3. We got 2 more sections to go here. The region of the north exists on the fringes of the Flanius. 3 realms are the primary points of intersection between the North Flanius and the neighboring areas. The Bandit Kingdoms. I'm sorry, there are a couple things we'll get to. Surprisingly, they moved it. Anyway, we'll get to it. The Bandit Kingdoms is a lawless frontier between the hunting lands in the north, the Horn Society and the Shield lands in the central Flanius, and the Duchy of Ten in the east. No single bandit lord is powerful enough to conquer the whole territory, and the combined strength of all is often required to defend it against retaliation by neighboring states for the bandit lord's aggressions. At least one of the bandit lords, Renfis the Mottled, ruler of Stoink, is wholly in the service of Ayaz. The next one is Ratik. As a former province of the Great Kingdom, Ratik rides the boundary between the northern and eastern regions of the Flanius. Without the protection of the Great Kingdom, Ratik has been forced to defend itself against frequent raids from the North Kingdoms and the Sea Baronies, as well as attacks from mountain-dwelling monsters. Baron Lexnal Harkov's emissaries hope to forge an alliance with the Northern Kingdoms and redirect the Berserkers' aggression towards the holds of the Stone Fist. Wegwire. Wolf Mother Bagra Yufkos of the Wegwire hordes is preoccupied with the threats of Ayaz, and she meets frequently with the clan leaders and Paranlander mercenaries to strategize. The Wegwire consider their territory to extend to the Dulce River, so they fiercely defend the western Howling Hills from the incursions of the hideous monsters that serve Ayaz. Several large battles between Wegwire and the forces of Ayaz have taken place in that area, up here along the cold marshes and the hills. Northern Flannius Adventures, as previously stated, the Cold North is an ideal location for a campaign featuring themes of sword and sorcery fantasy. The people of the Northern Flannius battle giants, dragons, and other horrific monsters in equally dangerous environments while remaining suspicious of the decadence of the cities and nations to the south. Officially speaking, the main things that were published up here were actually for Blackmoor, aka the region of Arn. Did not make the leap to 5e. I'm sure there was all kinds of crazy shit going on with legalities, but I do salute Mr. Mike Schley for recognizing Dave Arneson, the designer of Blackmoor, and renaming the Kingdom of Blackmoor Arn. A lot of lore, but a lot of lore in this thing. I promise you that. So on. The next section. This is a little bit meatier here. Old Keoland. United by their shared history as part of the ancient kingdom of Keoland, the marches and fiefdoms between the Lortmill Mountains and the higher mountains to the west gather diverse populations of many different species in relative peace with each other. Even the long-standing feud between Keoland and the Hold of the Sea Princes might be drawing to an end under the leadership of Keoland's current ruler, King Kimber Scotti. The region enjoys a warm, mild climate but faces many threats from monstrous foes. As usual, location on the left, ruler in the middle, and super brief description on the right. The March of Bissell. Margrave Imran Rendulkar, a human. A bone of contention between Keoland, Valuna, and Ket. Joff, the Grand Duchy of Joff. Joff, whatever you want to call it. Grand Duchess Owena Blackthorn, human. Isolated fiefdom with a long history of battling giants in the nearby mountains. The Grand March, Commandant Magnus Onyxbeard, a dwarf. Nominal vassal of Keoland and ally with Bissell, the Commandant is elected from amongst the March's noble houses. The Hold of the Sea Princes, down here. Prince Zygmunt III of Monmurg, a human. Independent oligarchy of sea traders founded by buccaneers, now a powerful naval force. The Kingdom of Keoland, King Kimber Scotti, heart of the old Keoland region, surrounded by friendly neighbors that swell fealty to Keoland's monarch. The Lortmill Mountains, no ruler here, but it is the natural border between the old Keoland region and the central Flannius. Sterich, the March of Sterich, down here. The Marquise Quercha Emondov, human. Nominal vassal state of Keoland, but its ruler is more like a sister than a vassal to the king of Keoland. The County of Ulek, Countess Luwen Richfield, a human, a former vassal of Keoland. The Duchy of Ulek, Duke Grenowin, an elf, former vassal of Keoland with a large population of elves. The Principality of Ulek, these little three go right down in a row here in the Lortmill Mountains. Princess Olin Korond, a dwarf. Fiefdom with a significant navy. Its princess commands the respect of many dwarves beyond Ulek. The Valley of the Mage. The Mage of the Valley is the ruler. Secluded refuge of an ancient archmage. Current inhabitants are unknown. Last is the Yeomanry. Freeholder Vindi Skyspear is a Goliath. Independent republic governed by an elected freeholder. Old Keoland culture. Old Keoland is a diverse region of the Flannius where different cultures have mingled for many centuries. Keolish folks often garden, maintain close family ties, and have a down-to-earth nature, and they love storytelling. The clothes worn in Old Keoland tend towards loose-fitting shirts and wide-legged pants, voluminous cloaks for cold or wet weather, and sturdy boots. This region's cuisine represents a fusion of central Flan dishes of rice, potato, and meat with some spices and seasonings brought from the west, creating unique flavors. Old Keoland and its neighbors. The long chain of the Lortmill Mountains forms a natural barrier between Old Keoland and the region of the central Flannius. The mountain contains some of the richest gems and precious metal deposits in eastern Uruk. The humans, dragonborn, dwarves, gnomes, halfling, goblinoids, Goliaths, and orcs that live in these mountains and their foothills are subjects of the realm that surround the mountain range, but they often band together to deal with greater threats on both sides of the mountains. Yeah, pretty picture. Old Keolan Adventures. There's a lot of stuff that was published here. Not all of it made its way into this book, but we'll see what happens. One reason for the amicable relations amongst the nations of Old Keoland is the danger posed by dragons, giants, and other monsters found throughout the region. That makes this region particularly well suited to a heroic fantasy campaign. The most dangerous places include those described below: the Barrier Peaks. These forbidding highlands are home to strange monsters. Expedition to the Barrier Peaks, an adventure in quest for the Infinite Staircase, explores the origins of these monsters. The Crystal Mist Mountains. Giants, white dragons, and other monsters frequently descend from the Crystal Mist Mountains into Joff and Sterich, searching for food and plunder. An ancient tunnel stretches from the western end of the Yeomanry into the Sea of Dust, attracting many adventurers to explore its lengths. Dim Forest. Though elves inhabit the western part of the Dim Forest, the eastern part is wild and prowled by monsters, including green dragons. The Hell Furnaces. The Hell Furnaces are a volcanically active extension of the Crystal Mist Mountains, populated with threats including fire giants and red dragons. Beneath the mountains are labyrinths that connect to the Underdark, wherein lie hidden cities, strongholds, and temples harboring terrible evil. And then you have the Jotuns, even more mountains. Hill giants, manticores, and wyverns from the Jotuns regularly threaten the tranquility of both Sterich and the Yeomanry. Last but not least is the Rushmores. Hungry black dragons, Otyugs, and other monsters haunt the Rushmores. Alrighty. Western Flanius. Hey, we're almost done. Yay! I'm going to try to keep the comments short, but I do have some. You know what? I'm going to save those for a summary episode after this. Western Flanius. The survivors of the invoked devastation that destroyed the ancient Backlanish Empire settled the temperate prairies, forest, and coastal lands of the Western Flanius about 1,000 years ago. Largely separated from the rest of the Flanius by the Yattles, the Barrier Peaks, and the Crystal Mist Mountains, these realms are a stronghold of Backlanish cultures. The nations of Ekbir, Tusmit, and Zeef, over here on the northern part, represent the heart of the region, and two rivers, the Blashkamund and the Tuflik, form natural barriers between them. Although the nations currently enjoy peaceful relations, Tusmit profits by playing its political neighbors against each other. The Ekbir against the Zyke against the Ulkandar nomads, the Ulakandar nomads against Ket, and so forth. Pasha Quarlan Silba of the Tusmit is careful to keep his name well clear of these schemes so he can avoid embroiling Tusmit in open warfare. But Tusmit spies are currently causing discord by spreading rumors that Zyfe is planning to invade Ekbir. Ekbir's sultans believe the rumors are true and is readying his army. Sultan Naxus Murad of Zyfe is a reclusive man, a great philosopher, and a stern father figure to the rulers of Ekbir and Tusmit. Over the years, advisors and family members have urged Naxus to expand Zyfe's borders through military conquests, but he refuses to do so, citing failed land grabs by kingdoms throughout history as proof that imperial expansion across the Flanius rarely ends well. Typical our normal location table. Left is the location, central is the ruler, and right is the ultra-brief description of each of these kingdoms and lands and nations. So the dry steppes have no rulers. This is where the desert where the Backlanish Empire once stood. The Sultanate of Ekbir, Sultan Zargun II, who is an Asimir. Monarchy is in an uneasy peace with its neighbors, bracing for a rumored invasion from Zyfe. Ket, Baygraf Zoltana Laz, a human. It's a crossroads region. The plains of the Ulakandar. Various Ulakandar clan leaders are the rulers. The lands of the Ulakandar nomads who roam between the dry steppes and the borders of Zyfe. The Sea of Dust, no rulers. Wasteland where the Sul Imperium once stood. Next is the Pashalak of Tuzmit. Pasha Quarlan Silba, monarchy profiting by playing its neighbors against each other. Next we have the Ul, Oricon Drasika Boranok. Human, an independent fiefdom founded by Ulakandar nomads who actually settled down into a land. And last is the Sultanate of the Zaif, Sultan Naxus Murad, a human. A monarchy ruled by a reclusive philosopher who resisted advisors' call to imperial expansion. Cultures of the Western Flaneus. The culture of the Western Flaneus preserves many of the ways and traditions of the ancient Backlanish Empire. Enormous value is placed on the virtues of hospitality and generosity, particularly almsgiving and pious donations to temple and clergy. Since the fall of their ancient empire, the people of the Western Flaneus have demonstrated more interest in trade as a way of amassing power and wealth, but also as a means of connecting and coexisting with neighbors. They would rather trade than exercise imperial expansion or military domination. The clothing favored by the people of the Western Flaneus features bright patterns and vibrant colors, worn in flowing gowns, robes, and long coats worn with breeches. Their cuisine is renowned for its rich flavors and spiciness. Extra spicy potatoes. Western Flaneus and its neighbors. Ket is the crossroads between the Western Flaneus and the rest of the continent, nestled between the Yaddle Mountains and Barrier Peaks. Though it was founded by Backlanish settlers, Ket's proximity to both Bissell and the lands of Kioland and the Voluna and the Central Flaneus makes it a vibrant multicultural land rich from extensive trade. Its culture reflects the breadth of its trade, including sizable populations of dragonborns and tieflings, and displaying a fusion of Backlanish and Oridian influence. This mixture is visible in the title of its ruler, which is a combination of a Backlanish title, Bey, and an Oridian title, Graf. The Bey Graf is a noble chosen by the lords of Lopola's wealthiest, most influential families. Many of these lords also serve as generals in the Ketish military. The current Bey Graf, Zoltana Laz, is a skilled diplomat who so far has balanced the interest of differences both inside her nation and amongst her neighbors. The political Western Flaneus adventures. The political and mercantile intrigue among Ekbir, Tuzmit, and Zaif provides abundant adventure opportunities for characters in the Western Flaneus. A campaign focused around intrigue or mystery, see the flavors of fantasy in this chapter, works particularly well in this region. Of course, Western Flaneus has its fair share of monsters, dungeons, and ruins as well. The ruins of the Backlanish Empire in the dry steppes and those of the Sul Imperium in the Sea of Dust attract plenty of adventurers as well as villains hoping to claim the magical knowledge that caused the terrible catastrophes leading to the fall of those empires. Ket and Ul as well suffer from the depredations of monsters in the Barrier Peaks and the Yaddle Mountains, just as their eastern neighbors do. And that's it. That's done. We are finished with the Greyhawk section. We are finished with the RTFM. I do apologize. I dropped a couple comments in there. It is what it is. Now, this video is hitting almost an hour and I haven't made many comments. I'm going to stop here at the end of the reading. I'm going to make one last video that kind of encapsulates my comments, my ideas involving this chapter. So if you're here for the RTFM, we're done reading. Thank you so much for hanging out. I know, big ass long chapter. I almost feel like I should have broken it up, but what's done is done. My next video will be commentary, so feel free to ignore it unless you're interested in Greyhawk. My next video, I'm going to provide some resources outside of the Dungeon Master's Guide. If you're into this setting, I'm going to hook you up with some titles to look at. But hey, in the meantime, thank you for your times. Likes, follows, subscribes. Comments are appreciated. Let me know how I'm doing. Let me know what you like. Let me know what you'd like to see different. Trying to do this to, to help people out. And likes, follows, subscribes. Join me over on Twitch for live chats and all the good stuff. But more importantly, thank you for being here, and we'll see you soon.